Alright, we are recording for continuing the Omnibus with Alphacore. One that I know in just the last video, I definitely went on a rambling rant type thing, emphasizing a point that I know I've made previously about, Alphacore and certain events in this story definitely are present throughout the other stories, and I had plenty of questions that were there because of some certain things going on there, certain things presented there concerning Alphacore, or concerning stuff that I knew would be in the story. So I've been looking forward to getting to this because, like, hey, maybe some of these questions will be answered, finally. Not really, sadly. In fact, in some ways it opens up more questions. But let me at least get through this title page. So, yes, Alphacore. Chuck Dixon writer, Joe Bennett penciler. I do not doubt I'm going to mess up these names. I'm just going to give my best shot here. Tiago Del Bello, Thiago. That I'm assuming is Tiago. Emmanuel Braga, Tiago Gomes. Marcio or Marcio, I'm going to go with Marcio for now. Loazer and Yonami, but that was Marcio and Loerzer. And then they are the inkers, Michael Bartolo and Tiago Del Bello for the colors. Though an affluent city, Flores Park is not without problems. The Flores Park police are very capable of handling formidable threats. Bad acts still exist, and some of them have the worst of intentions, and that's why they need Alphacore. As I said, questions don't really go answered for me, and I'm just, with it being Chuck Dixon, I did not like Zaylin. I've said that plenty of times. I was more happy with Horseman Welcome to Flores Park from him. This, I'm also not that happy with. I don't think it was all that good, but definitely not on the level of Zaylin. Zaylin pisses me off. This doesn't piss me off. I just really think it's weak. And hey, I'm gonna tell you why. Before getting into all that, though, we got the letter here, which is him talking about that he, before starting working with Eric July, he did know about him at least, and it says here, I liked Eric July. Why? Well, all the right people hated him. And then he basically explains that it's like the people that hated him were people that Chuck Dixon himself significantly disagrees with. So it's like, hey, if they don't like you, I might. It's like that might be, seal of approval that, oh, I should get to know you. And when he heard about the Rippaverse, he reached out to Eric to offer support and advice and all that. Eventually, Eric asked him if he'd like to do some writing. Ultimately, we got from that Alphacore, where, at least how this is written, Eric basically said, hey, I got this superpowered team, Alphacore, introduced Nice on One. You want to develop it? It's like, sure. And that it was basically just that. You can just explore the superpowered cops, develop them. And it does also say here that, Eric had trust in Chuck Dixon, that he wouldn't break his stories, pee in his sandbox, or make his characters mine. Which, I mean, I want to go off on a point, but it's not going to be a very good ramble. It's just, I just feel that, or make his characters mine, there can be some nuance there. Because if you are developing characters, even if it's that somebody else created, especially like that, because I'm not sure when Alphacore came out, but relative to anything else, but it is just a my brain just turned off a little bit. You do get to have some claim to the stuff you developed here with them. Okay, I'm saying that you do get, but I do understand, and he does even put it in quotes, mine. And so it might be, the whole that, oh, well, I get to do whatever the heck I want. It's like, no. They were created by Eric. He would have a plan for them. You still have to make sure everything agrees with them. Everything aligns with that plan. But I guess another way to put it is this. Because and this is part of the reason why I want to try to do this ramble. As I've stated before, I don't remember where, I dislike fanfiction, but it's for certain specific points. One is basically this: people doing fan fiction that mean like, oh, well, that character's mine. It's like, no, it's not. But there's also, I feel that if you have an idea for fan fiction that you think is really good, if it is really good, write it in your own world then. Write it in your own universe. Don't tie it to somebody else, because then it's partially theirs. It's like, no, make it your own, because that way it is yours. And you can take inspiration from somebody else. That's fine. But if it is fan fiction, then you're always connected to that other person or people. And how much is yours? How much is theirs? Becomes a difficult question. But this, the whole "or make his characters mine" is probably more so in that kind of fan fiction where you just basically have no respect for the characters. You're just trying to tell your own kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, he not gonna do that. So anyway, let's actually get to the story, which opens with, I actually couldn't even tell because they have something obscuring it, but dude is robbing a bank, has a woman as a hostage with a gun to her head. What you can't see easily here is that he's actually wearing a suicide vest. It's very hard to see though, because the bag of money is in front of it. Like, the bricks of whatever the explosive is are obscured between her and that. I mean, yes, it does say back off or we both go up, but that could just be, vernacular. And it's like, yeah, then we're gonna kill both of us or something. Oh, it does also look like he may have, like, grenades on his hip as well. And it's like, well, it could also be that. So it's like, that it's a suicide vest is not clear here. But anyway, massive response. Actually, in some ways, when you think about it, it is an overreaction. I mean, they got enough weapons and such here and armored vehicles that it's like, I mean, did you call in the National Guard for this? But what they didn't call in was Alphacore, but Solari was apparently just around, didn't have anything better to do, so he went and just grabbed the guy, hauled him up into the air. Asks him the question of, how to disarm this. After, because the guy is shooting at him, and he's like, you need to stop that. I'll live, but it still hurts, and this cape wasn't free. It doesn't really come up much later, but I do just want to, as an aside, because this is something that I have thought about and I have had to consider with my own stuff, the concept of pain training. Because it makes sense for somebody like Solari, for how he's been depicted before. Yes, he is invulnerable to a lot, but that doesn't mean he doesn't feel pain. He certainly does feel pain here. And so it would be reasonable then that in addition to training, like, working out, that you could also intentionally try to expose yourself to things that cause great pain to improve your own pain tolerance. Either a, I don't feel it kind of tolerance, or a, okay, this is great pain, but I'm still able to, through my willpower, through my discipline, get through it. But anyway, you know how to disarm this? No, then I don't need you. He pulls the jacket off and drops the guy, which actually reminds me of something else. That's technically there's a technical problem there, but it's actually not that big a deal. Some suicide vests, they are actually wired up in such a way that they can't be removed without them detonating. So, like, Solari actually taking it off the guy without checking it is very foolish. Because it is possible that by him trying to do that, it would immediately detonate. Anyway, he does that, throws the bomb off in one direction, drops the guy into a pool of a nearby hotel. So he survives. Not necessarily, water isn't always that great for it, but anyway. Solari then goes and grabs him after the bomb explodes, more or less harmlessly. Does set off a bunch of car alarms. And the guy even makes a comment about, it went off, so he didn't think it was real. Which is significant, because not only is that showing that he didn't think it was real, but that also means it was provided to him. It's like, that's obvious. He was not working alone. Anyway, Solari brings the guy down to turn in, and the cop who was in charge of it, which... Wait a minute. Oh, that's funny. That is funny. There's a typo here. I'm completely serious. I do not know if this will come through, babe. But here, look on his vest. I don't know if that's coming through, but it's missing the C in police. Yeah. Oh, man. I mean, the swap page, I think should try to apply to Rippaverse to do QA. They can use it. Guy's name is Pantley Flynn, and it's... What's going on here, there's more of it later on, and more so my comments on it apply to what we see later. But what this is setting up now is basically, there's bureaucracy that is just stupid. Well, there's a natural state of bureaucracy, because bureaucracy in many cases exists to serve itself. It exists to perpetuate itself. And in this case, it's basically, I mean, yeah, Solari did prevent the guy from dying, prevent the hostage from dying, prevent any major damage, but he wasn't supposed to do that. He wasn't called in. This is our job. You weren't supposed to. There's no thank you for taking care of this. Nothing. Just a, you know the rules for accepts. You come when we call you. You come when it's a freak call. And it's just like, I get it. Trust me, I get it. I had to write some stuff for Children Many Gifts. I had to write some stuff like, well, the attitude. But also what I specifically wrote there was that shit like this was basically, hey, this is bad. Is part of what's going on in that book. Is just straight up calling out, well, a couple things. One is that we're all people. We're all humans. We're supposed to treat each other a certain way. It doesn't matter that some have special abilities and some don't. Because there can also be the argument made that, fine, Solari has super strength, is invulnerable, and can fly. And you can't. But there's things you can do that he can't do. So really, where's the line you're drawing here? About what divides them, where it's like, oh, well, I can treat you like shit because you're different. It's like, okay, well, that line can be drawn on you as well. So we just shouldn't be drawing those lines. That's very much a point that I make there, because it is stupid to behave this way. There's that. There's also another point that I'm making there is that at least some of the characters in my story, Sam in particular, if you ever read The Children Many Gifts and you make it to the 60s, as in the chapters there, even in the 50s technically, but definitely in the 60s, he definitely has an attitude of, look, I don't care what you're going to do. None of you can impact me. None of you can hurt me. And I can kill every single one of you. So it's like, he basically just bullies he intimidates everyone to be like, look, I don't care what you decide. Because you could decide that we all need to be executed. You're not doing that to me, so I don't care. And so Laurie, there's a part of me, so he doesn't do it. But there's also the part of me that it's like, this is stupid because, like, you should be showing respect to him because he's a police officer. He's a super cop. But it's like, should be showing respect to him for that. And also the whole, he can kill you very easily. It's like, the reason he's not killing you is because he's a good guy, it seems. Like, he knows to restrain himself. So, really, I'm like, why are you approaching him like he's an idiot? Although, to be fair, Solari is an idiot in this story, which is definitely one of my main criticisms for it. But it's like, this Flynn guy should be treating him as an equal. And he's not. He's treating him like, oh, he's a bad child. He did the wrong thing. It's like, no, he did the right thing. The rules are stupid. If they would have prevented, because like, you just saw the bomb explode. Was there enough time such that anyone would have been able to do anything before that bomb would explode? Would there have been Flint? Because it seems like it was like maybe a minute later that it exploded. So it's like, would you have been able to do anything? No, you would not have been. He just saved 2 lives. Shut up. Okay? You are wrong. He did the right thing. I don't care what the rules are in this situation. The call was right. And if we can't respect the fact that, hey, sometimes the call goes against the rules, but ends up being right. If you can't respect that, why are you in this position? Why are you in a position of command? You need to be able to make those command decisions, so shut up. It just... More of this comes up later, okay? Legitimately, because some other aspects of the situation, I said they come up later, they get more defined later and also less defined. We'll get to that. it gets it. Okay, so the next page, Michael and Lillian are here, and we find out that Michael is behind this because apparently he had some money that was in a safety deposit box there, and it's money that he wouldn't be able to account for, so if it were ever discovered, that'd be a problem. So we hired the robber, gave him the suicide vest to go in there. His basic plan was, well, the suicide vest would go off while in the vault, destroying any evidence of what he had done. But Solari interfered, but even then, he wasn't in the right place. Well, hang on, actually. Wait, didn't it say there was money there? Yeah. There are funds in a deposit box. Funds you can't justify, and here we are trying to avoid attention. So, yeah, anyway. So he's going to start trying to clean things up, but doesn't do that great a job. We then have Solari flying back to the Eagle's Nest. We didn't get an alpha signal on the call. Let's call it exigent circumstances, Ray. Just winging it then? Sure. Which, I mean, again, exigent circumstances. That's complete, and that's kind of the point that I was making about you need to be able to make those command decisions. It's like, Solari going by should be like, woman in danger, suicide bomb. I'm immune to suicide bombs. I'm going to go in and deal with this because I can get behind the guy and remove him from the situation. That's all completely fair. The idea that you're out of line. What are you talking about? No, he isn't. Exigent circumstances for the situation and how it ended at the start, the exigent circumstance at the start and how it turned out at the end justify him completely. But it's like, no, you still got to yell at the man. It's like, dude, forest for the trees. Anyway, now that he's walking with this Ray guy who's apparently in charge of Eagle's Nest, they're talking. I was thinking of AirPod 1 or the Pod. Not a sexy name for this craft. What about Airy? What's that mean? It means Eagle's Nest. Then call it that. So it's like, okay, this is the official introduction then for Eagle's Nest because we're actually given its name. We've just seen it and had it discussed in prior stories, at least in the Omnibus. Having read through this, I do not understand why it's this late. I really don't understand. And the whole claim that, it provides a comprehensive timeline, it's like, how? This is supposed to be the more in-depth introduction for various characters, especially Solari and Ingrid, and Braxwell to a degree, although Braxwell never talks. Actually, he just never does talk at all now that I think about it. But still, it's like an Eagle's Nest, which I've already seen from Chasing Ghosts crash into the ground. So it's like, I already knew that was going to happen. There's also, I already have a sense of Solari's character from all these previous stories. When he was in... I'm trying to remember how much he was in ISOM, the ISOM stories. Not much. He was definitely in Yaira and Great War Separation. He was in Horseman, Welcome to Forest Park, which is itself actually a little bit of a problem because within this story, we're introduced to Eagle's Nest and it crashes. But we saw him fly out of Eagle's Nest in Welcome to Forest Park. But this is when it had, well, I guess it wasn't named there, so no, because it still seems like that should have been, it's in the air, so either Horseman, Welcome to Forest Park had to have happened like shortly before this or at the same time, but still is, none of those versions of Solari align with this. This Solari, when he's introduced in the Great War Separation Part 1, or number 1, I should say, he's already a 2-star general, okay? This guy seems like, even though he's referred to at times like an officer or something like that, or that he was in the army, it's like, okay, this dude is like a grunt or a low-ranking officer. There's no way, based on his level of stupidity, of naivete, and lack of discipline, that this would ever be a high-ranking officer. But no, he is. It's like, which is either then they really changed his character after this, which I would use as argument for, we should have put this in much earlier then, so that people can see that, and then he changes to all this instead of it being potentially the last story with him. Is he going to be in Bloodruth? Because I mentioned at the end last one, because I'd already looked a little bit at Dirty Deeds, that seems to be set off world. So Bloodruth 1 is the only story left on Earth in the Omnibus. And just flipping through this, there is zero indication that it has anything but basically just Bloodruth for recognizable characters, at least ones that have names. So, yeah, I mean, it's you're ending with the version of the character the least consistent with everyone else, with how he's been depicted everywhere else. That's a problem. I would really appreciate justification for how this is supposed to be a comprehensive timeline. I am left more confused about Solari's character rather than less. I mean, I either put it in. Okay, look, this is how it should be, in my opinion. For one thing, have a table of contents, okay? But don't just give. This is the order, this is the pages in the omnibus. Don't just do that. Also give the original publication dates, so we know the order they were released in. Because some people would be like, okay, well, okay, that's the order you put them in. It's like however it is in the table of contents, which I would argue, just go with the in-universe timeline, okay? The order and that. Just do that. That I do feel if I read it in that order, I would not. A lot of the confusion would be gone for me. But it is also true, though. He would not be consistent then, Solari. He would not be consistent with what we saw in various other stories. But at least then he'd be. This would be in the middle. We're not ending on this version of Solari. We'd have Great War of Separation first. We'd have. Just trying to think. Would we have ISOM 1 yet? I'm not sure. I could technically see Alphacore being set prior to ISOM 1. I'm not sure. Well, no, because I think in ISOM 1 we might have had some depiction of them having Eagle's Nest. I actually this was a lucky grab. Managed to, actually put me right by it. Okay. Yeah, there's that, which is also just a little funny. Okay. Okay, I'm not seeing it there. Is it possible there was something in ISOM 2? I do not consider this a minor point, so I do want to check if there was any indication of them being on Eagle's Nest. No, it doesn't look like it. I don't think they were actually present in ISOM 3. At least in any way that would give me... No, because we get the other guy. It would just be Yaira. And I definitely don't know the timeline for where Yaira fits in. I mean, yes, Yaira 1 is shortly after ISOM 1. But, Yaira 2 and 3 are, supposed to be months later. Anyway, focusing back on this. Just the table of contents thing. Put it in... I do think in-universe timeline order is how it should be in the omnibus. So I think that would probably make the most sense reading from cover to cover. But you give the publication dates, so that way somebody can look at that and be like, okay, I'm going to read it in the publication order then. And but the information is all there. Or maybe, don't do in-universe date, but have it moved around. But definitely, Alphacore being at the end makes no sense to me. It really doesn't, because I already know Eagle's Nest crashed because of Chasing Ghosts. That was several stories ago. That's not a small thing. And I feel like there was something else recently. I mean, technically, Horseman, because of seeing that Solari flew him down from Eagle's Nest. I mean, it's like, okay, so that means that was in the air. But I'm getting that before Eagle's Nest was named, which seems odd, because it's like, or is this a new one? I don't know, because there's, again, nothing setting that up, nothing explaining that. I mean, it just... it really does not make sense. Where anything can fall properly in the timeline, and just anyway, getting back to what's actually going on here. So Solari has returned to the aircraft, to the Eagle's Nest. They're talking. Ingrid is giving him some grief because of how he's on the news and is you're all over the news, Brian. You make it sound like that's a bad thing. Sandy, who we also saw in Chasing Ghosts, is problematic. How, Sandy? Perp cart citizens and property saved. Depends on your perspective, Sandy says. And then we get some in this television interview. We were promised when these excerpts were employed by the city, there would be guidelines. Is that important when we get a happy ending like we did today? Interviewer asks of the guy being interviewed. Happy for who, Dana? Happy for a populace that has to be afraid of some super creep bashing down their door at midnight. It's silly stuff like that. But Ingrid, it's like Solari wants to just dismiss this stuff. Just forget it. This is important, Brian. This matters. Public opinion could turn on us, and then this program could turn on us and end this program because of your grandstanding. What about that car wash opening? That was a favor for a friend. I mean, it's just they're both doing things in the public eye, at least so long. What she's doing is kind of innocuous. Car wash opening doesn't help them at all. Might hurt them, but not in a horrible way. Whereas Solari, if it is viewed as grandstanding, that could be seen as an issue. But it still is. Like, this man isn't carried here. Like, he's not carrying himself like a former 2-star general, a war hero. Okay, that's not who this man is. Because the Solari that I was seeing before, this is a man who commands discipline just with his presence. Like Flynn, the way Flynn talked to this Solari, I don't think that man would ever have talked to the Solari of, say, Yaira 3 when he's having to deal with the descendant of Yaira. I'm blanking on her name. I'm not going to flip back. But it's like, that Solari, no, you are respecting that man. Because he just carries himself with, the whole, I do know what's going on. I am not naive. I understand the world. I did the right thing. And you're not going to question me on that. I know what I did. It was the right thing to do. And how are you going to argue with him? How are you going to argue with him? You would not be able to. This guy, he's kind of an idiot, and he very much is an idiot later on. Also says that it was Solari that insisted on the cape, and it's like, I mean, I could see it even with the 2-star general, just being the whole, superheroes wear capes, don't they? It's like, just as the, like, oh, I mean, come on. I mean, the comic books I read as a kid, I mean, they wear capes, so, yeah. Or just also it being a symbol as far as, yeah, superheroes wear capes. People recognize that. So by my wearing it, that helps to say, I'm the good guy. Right? And it also can be I need to be the good guy worthy of the cape. So, anyway. It's tense between these two because they do see things differently. But neither of them are quite right. Because, I mean, if Ingrid hadn't gone to a car wash opening, then I think her argument might stand a little bit better. And Braxwell isn't present to say anything, not that he would. But then they get a call for help because now the police are encountering an except, and it's like, okay, when we encounter an except, we can call in. It's like, does your evidence fall within the restrictions of the Fawcett Act? Unless you can confirm, we can't respond. This is so stupid. And, so it seems that the Fawcett Act is basically, yes, you can have excepts on the police force, but they can only be used when you have another except. That's like, except on except is fine, but except on anyone else isn't. It's like, this is stupid. But anyway, they do manage to call somebody in. It is Braxwell, who, I like the guy. I mean, he doesn't say anything, but even just how he first appears and handles things here, there's very much a this is a no-nonsense kind of guy. He comes here to get the job done. He gets it done. He's not making waves like Solari does, but it's not that he chooses. He doesn't need to. It's not that he's choosing not to make waves, is my read on him. Just say, I don't need to. I'm getting the job done, and that's it. Job's done. All right. Then I'm out. So I guess a way to put it is he seems incredibly disciplined. And it's all it needs to be. Yeah, so the Fawcett Act thing, I would like to know some more about that. We don't really get it in here. But there's so many problems with this. And it is one of those. It's kind of like, with other things I've mentioned. With some other stories where it's like, unfortunately, I've already thought about this stuff. And it's, you can't, it is unreasonable to have any kind of regulation, any kind of legislation that would say, okay, if somebody has these certain abilities, that then that if we would define them as an accept, basically, that then, okay, they are denied from certain roles. It's like, that would be considered unconstitutional, because that is discrimination based on a class that is completely not by choice. And it's not necessarily with any reason. I mean, there are certain exceptions. Like, we're talking about equal employment kind of stuff here. Equal opportunity employment. Or equal employment opportunity, however you want to put it. And there are exceptions to that. Because it's like, I mean, if somebody's looking to hire for the Rockettes, you do have certain expectations for what, being a woman, but it's also the shape of the body and such, and also certain expectations for how they will maintain their bodies. That, basically they will try to maintain certain measurements, all that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, that is considered allowed in part because you know it when you apply. And it's like, it's clear that there are those requirements. But it's not really based on a class. But it's like, so the idea that, oh, well, you're not allowed to do your job because it's like, that's stupid. Especially because what about someone who's just already on the force when the law comes into effect? They now have to lose their job? And it's like, you can't have that. And it is there's also the issue of, okay, what if it's a minor ability? Like, it's kind of in there as a joke, but it is also there for a purpose. In Too Many Gifts, there's one guy who he actually only exists online. Like, he just will message people. Well, he'll be on, like, internet forums talking with other people who also have abilities. But his thing is, anything he sees, he can give it instant count for. So, one thing that he talks about is, like, if he looks at a lawn, he can tell you the exact number of blades of grass there. And I even make the joke about how it's not even like stores are doing the whole, it's like, how many gumballs are in this fish tank? Because, like, he could just look and know instantly. It's like, it's a useless ability. Which is kind of a running joke in there, but it's also, I mean, it seems like the guy's a nice guy. And it's like, yeah, what am I supposed to do with this? It isn't helpful for anything. I can't even, like, win the fish or something from the pet store by guessing the number of gumballs. And it's just, how would you actually say that, yeah, that guy can't be on the police force? He's an accept. It's like, because he can look at a yard and tell you how many blades of grass are there? He can look at a wall, like wallpaper, and tell you how many flowers are on that? Because of that, he can't be on the police force? Well, I mean, it does not impact his job at all. I mean, anything, it might make him a little bit better because it's like he can just look at a scene and can tell you instantly how many, like, shell casings or something are on the ground. He can just do that. Or see, like, there's, bundles of drugs here. Say, how many? This many. It's like, but it's, why can't he not be a cop? Well, he's an accept. It's like, but why? What is this harming? How is this a harm to anyone? It's like, it's stupid. I get the whole that, people, but it's stupid. Because if there were a line that is actually described, and in a way there is a little bit of a setup later, because there's a character who mentions that on the Schuster scale, which I do appreciate that, he would barely be a 2. It's like, okay, so in theory there's a concept in universe for ranking the level of your superpowers. Got it. If it were I'm a 2, you're a 7, because he's talking to Ingrid. If it was something like, you're a 7, and 5s and above, Now these regulations apply. But I'm only a 2, so I can just do this stuff. It's not a problem. I don't need to keep it. But he does keep it secret, except he keeps it poorly. It's a whole stupid thing. It really is a problem, okay? But it's just... It's a whole stupid thing. Because it's kind of the whole... I've said it before, consequences. I've said it many times previously. I have a technical mind. You start... I can understand putting the stuff in there to create the tension, to have the issue. I get that. But there are consequences of this such that you have to work it out. You have to figure out, like with the Schuster scale things, you have to decide, okay, 5 and above, that's what it is. Okay, so you also have the Schuster scale then precisely defined. Okay, you also have that defined. It's like, well, no, okay, then define that, and then we can get back to... Okay, but it's also then, well, does the Schuster scale, is that just the strength of your ability, or is it the potential for you to influence others? Because it could also be that, because the guy being able to count anything, it's like, in theory, he might be like a 10 on some scale. If it's like, I can tell you exactly how many stars are in the sky, it's like, okay, that's actually really neat, because like, that's not easy. That would be very difficult. That would be really, really impressive. I mean, true, it would be based on just what his vision can take in, because it's like, you get a telescope to amplify your vision, you'll see the dimmer stars, but it's still like, that's actually really neat. So that would be very high scoring, but there's no potential for that to harm anyone. So you have to account for that now. It's like those consequences and thinking of, and none of that is presented here, and it annoys me greatly. Like I said, I had questions. It does not answer them. And I kind of have more questions. Except it's also some of this stuff I'm just sufficiently annoyed and frustrated by, where it's like, you know what, no, I don't even have the questions. I don't really care what's in the Fawcett Act, because it's stupid. I just see this and say it's stupid, because it doesn't seem thought out. It doesn't seem reasonable. It seems it's just there to be there. So it's thready, in other words. And in some ways, yes, there are other things that happen in this story that are definitely what I've deemed, what I've used the term thready to describe, where it's here not because it makes sense, not because it really helps the story, but because it seems Chuck Dixon just wants certain things to happen. Anyway, Robert was captured. Apparently his name was Cecil, whatever. You know, I didn't even notice that before. That's actually a major problem. That cannot be there. He's being questioned by 2 officers. One is Briggs, who is the detective from Chasing Ghosts, the one that did not get along well with Ingrid, with quite an attitude problem with her. She still seems to have something of an attitude here, though it's not clear why. Okay, hang on. Briggs and Johnson. Okay, so they're interrogating Cecil. But I also just noticed this here, that they're interrogating him, and yeah, he is manacled, including with the chains to the table, so he's very limited. But she's at the table, Johnson's behind her. She has, it looks like, a gun in a shoulder holster, but another gun literally just sitting on the table. I get I'm not a cop, but they do show in plenty of television shows and movies that when you go into an interrogation room, or when you just go into the jail portion of the police department, you are disarmed. You turn your gun over because you don't want your gun possibly being taken by somebody who's jailed. The idea that you would have it sitting loose on the table. I mean, this isn't like the Barrett in One Small Push, where it's like, that's the wrong weapon for it. But at least with the Barrett, it's recognizable. I can understand that. It's still the wrong weapon. It's more like what was it earlier? There was something earlier. Oh yeah, the B2. The B2 dropping people off from a B2 stealth bomber. It's like, it's not meant for that. It's not designed for that. You would never do that. That's not the right tool for the job in any way, shape, or form. There's also Chuck Dixon's story. That was Great War of Separation 1. And actually, I do want to flip back just to make sure that was... I'm pretty sure it was. But I want to make sure that was Chuck Dixon. But that is actually really... Yeah, no, that's Chuck Dixon. Well, at least... Hang on, I'm looking at... No. Ah, there we go. Okay, yeah. It was Chuck Dixon. Man, I'm starting to wonder if I just... Do I not care much for comic book writing, or I just not care for Chuck Dixon's writing? I'm really hoping that that's the case, because that means that I can potentially find other comic books that I would want to read. I just maybe need to avoid him. And just to defend him, it can just be he and I don't align in how he writes stories and the stories I like reading, or the stories I write. But I mean, it's like, that's fine. That can be the case, and might be if he would ever read any of my stuff, he would be like, I think this is stupid. It's like, okay, that's fine. So then that just means the misalignment between us goes both ways. Nothing wrong with that. It just means, all right, then you want to read somebody else's novels, I want to read somebody else's comic books, and we move on with our lives. Anyway, so yeah, and they're questioning Cecil, and it's, even there's the whole, since when do you know how to make bombs? The internet? And it's like, no, if we check, we'll find that there's nothing like that in your history. But then his lawyer arrives. His lawyer just happens to be the guy who was on television previously talking about how, we can't have exceps in the police force and how that's a bad thing and all that. And it's like, boo, ooh, boogeyman. Because, we can't have them, busting down our doors at midnight. But, I mean, it's almost a question of, so how is them not being on the police force going to prevent that? Or not working for the city going to prevent that? Because if there's somebody that has excess powers and they want to bust down your door, and they're just a criminal, they're just going to do that. Is you concerned just like, well, but if it's police and it's like, yeah, if they're busting down the door, they have either exigent circumstances or a warrant, in which case they don't need it to be an except. They can just have a battering ram. We have those things. Like, they do have small portable battering rams. It's like they can just bust down your door anyway. They don't need Solari for that. Or they could just get the big guy and be like, hey, kick it. It's like, done. I mean, you don't... Anyway. But it's that guy, so sleazy lawyer. He arrives because he's representing Cecil. Michael hired him. Michael's... It's actually kind of funny. Michael doesn't seem that stupid in the other stories. He does seem stupid here. Where Lillian is crafty. She's the one that's really thinking things through. That was never really how I read them in the other stories. It seemed far more that these were two... The way it kind of read to me, those two, was that their attraction to each other was very intellectual. It's not unreasonable to think that they're having sex, but it is just very much, I think, intellectual, where they don't necessarily like each other, but it seemed more like they're both very intelligent, they both have their own selfish goals, and they just realize that they can work together and work together well, so they're going to stay together because they work together well. And just the recognition, and that's very much how it felt. So this way, it seems like he's just, I had an indiscretion, some money that I can't account for, so I'm just dealing with it. Yeah, but you're dealing with it like a moron. It's like, and him just continuing to try to solve it in moronic ways. It's like, that's not the Michael I got in the other stories. But anyway, so Solari gets chewed out by the chief, Holcomb. And it's... How do you see your role here, Brian? You mean Alphacore's role, sir? I see us as a force multiplier. That's where you're wrong. You aren't even first responders. To put it bluntly, your squad is a last resort. Law enforcement runs into an accept problem they can't handle, and that's where you all come in. Now, this is also something that I want to point. A certain thing about, at least I'm pretty sure this is the case, SWAT. Because you could also argue SWAT is the last resort. Yeah, but SWAT officers don't just sit around a police station until there's something that calls for SWAT. They're out there normally, and it's just, hey, situation now calls for SWAT, and they report wherever, and then like get the gear. It's not that they are only active then, when SWAT is needed. No, they're police officers, but they have the additional training and they have the experience to go in when it is needed. That's much more how Alphacore should be. Is treated like SWAT. I get Solari and Braxwell are two very powerful persons, so I'm not entirely sure how you'd have them walk in a beat normally, but it is still that is far more reasonable, because that you already have that structure in existence. The idea that, we're going to go to a completely new structure, it just seems stupid to me. And there's also the whole, it's like, you come in your last resort. Yeah, the freak calls. Solari says, with quotes there on freak calls. And the chief here, he should respond to that. He should have some reaction to that, because that is absolutely something that I do feel a competent leader in a position like this should be like, that's not what they are. That's not what they are. And just by stating it in a way where it's like, so Solari understands. He's saying, we're not calling them that. Not even the jargon. Okay, not even just the vernacular. No, I'm putting an end to that, because you know what? That's wrong. Because it's also, holy shit, the freak calls. Why is it a freak call? Because there's an except involved. Or is it because they're calling in the freaks? It's like, no. You cannot allow that, okay? Fully, you cannot allow that. Because that's only going to sow division. And he needs it to be unified. This is the chief of police. He needs this to be unified. That division is wrong, but there's no reaction to this. It's just, look, the media's all over the Texas Trust thing this morning. I need you to cool it. Cool it how, chief? And it's like, so he doesn't even address it. So he's allowing, at minimum, that division to exist. And he shouldn't, because it's like how I said earlier with Flynn, he should be treating Solari as an equal. True, Holcomb is in charge, but it's still, he should be enforcing equality amongst his people, and he's not. Yeah, and so we get only fly when it's absolutely necessary. There's no need for y'all to be on patrol all the time until the circus dies down. Keep low profile. A little bit more, but when it's time for Solari to leave, he actually goes, if that's all, chief, do I have permission to fly, sir? So it's just mocking him, and it's, he deserves it. And this is also going back to the whole, this is not the Solari of the other stories. Because he is sarcastic here, and say, I get that. But 2-star general, war hero, has the weight of experience on him, like we see in Yaira 2 and 3, when with how he deals with what's her name, the Yaira descendant. It's like, this is a man who he could go to sarcasm, but he wouldn't need to, because even though it's yes, I'm damn Solari, you're not in the army now. This is about policing, not war. It's like, I'm a freaking 2-star general. I was a 2-star general. Solari should have more experience than this police chief. Okay, maybe not at policing, but for managing these men, everyone in the police department, he should be at least equal to this man. But he's not being treated that way, and he's not treating himself as, I am your equal here. He's not carrying himself with that respect either. He's not carrying himself with that discipline. And that's just so disappointing. This should be a better Solari than we're getting here. And this just goes back to the whole, this Alphacore story should have been in a different position in the Omnibus. Because Solari alone is just so inconsistent with everything seen before. But we're ending on this Solari. If we had started on this Solari, okay, we see him change. Still makes Great War separation stories a bit of a problem. But then it's okay, well, if you have this in the middle, at least we can then more so see, yes, this is the aberration. No, it also does make me wonder, what are they going to do with Solari and Alphacore 2? I mean, that's a legitimate question, because you now would have this situation of, okay, do we go with the Solari that's in, like, every other book, which is not Alphacore, or do we keep it the Alphacore Solari? Because there might be somebody that only buys Alphacore 1 and then 2, and it's like, whoa, why is Solari completely different? Not having the context of the other books. Or is it you keep it consistent, but then people who do also know the other books would be like, wait, we're back to this Solari? Man, I didn't like this Solari. So yeah, it's all kinds of messed up. So anyhow, the lawyer goes to see, is seeing Cecil, talking with him, but then we also find that the dude Braxwell went to beat up is this just crazy guy with electric powers. He's captured. Well, Michael arranges for that sleazy lawyer to be his lawyer as well, so that he can then, basically convince this guy Galvin. Yeah, it's an electricity joke. But it's like convinces him to break out of jail so that he can then, murder Cecil, because that ties up some things at least. We then next see Michael having dinner with a attractive blonde, basically. Lillian shows up, and as you take off, you're supposed to be taking care of something personally. I'm not getting my hands dirty. And again, this goes to how this doesn't seem like the Michael and Lillian characters that we saw before, where Michael's kind of an idiot playboy, and Lillian is one who actually knows what's going on. It's like, as I said, it seemed more so like they are together. It seemed like previously they were together because they respected each other's intellects. They were attracted to each other's intellect. Such that I could even see it being, as creepy as it might be, if Michael's going to dinner with this blonde, Lillian might actually also be at the table. Because, as inappropriate as that might be, there are other words I don't feel like saying, it's still she would be staying close because of the intellectual aspect there. But as far as like Michael having a sexual relationship with another woman, Lillian might be like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. But that's not the feel here. But anyway, we then get Galvin able to break out, in part because it's like, if he gets any electricity, it's going to be a problem. So actually, that is kind of funny. It just occurred to me, he's kind of like Static Shock, in that it seems like if you can just keep him from having any electrical charge, he's depowered, which was definitely a thing with Static Shock. If you got water on him, he was shorted out. He couldn't do anything until he got a charge back. And one of the cops, the security guards, is an idiot, pulled a taser on him. So that enables him to escape. He only knocks them out, but he goes and murders Cecil. Which is definitely something of an issue. And it also does pull out Alphacore here, because they're involved, and it's like, but, it's like, is this your case? It's like, well, it was a murder by an accept, so, yes. Yeah, they also do physical. Okay, I guess it is old enough that maybe no. Sign-in sheets should have been digitized even by this point. Anyway, but they do see that it's the lawyer visited both of them. And then it's like, okay, they have multiple leads to track down. They need to track down the lawyer. They need to track down Cecil, and Solari also specifically wants to go to the go back to the bank to figure out what's going on there. But we got Briggs here, who is being disrespectful right away. I guess we could use the muscle. Ingrid's response is, muscle, we're fully capable of investigating this ourselves. We'll see what downtown has to say about that, says Briggs. So it's like, we're already getting that stuff here that was also very clear in Chasing Ghosts, but still is why does she not like them? No idea. But it is also if even the police chief is tolerating freak calls as the term there, it might just be a culture thing there, where it's like, hey, guess what? You can treat them as not deserving the respect they do deserve. Because it is also stated, like, Ingrid does describe herself as a cop later, so it's like, yeah, she should be given some respect. And if they are super cops, and presumably she was a cop before, I mean, we don't know, we don't have her history yet, but it still is like she does deserve better respect than this, such that Briggs, it's sort of the way Ingrid has been described, I don't remember which story it was in, where Solari states that she's there because Braxwell said that, she was vouched for her ability to investigate, which I then take, with her cop background that she was in fact a detective. It's basically somebody should pull Briggs aside and be like, you are exceedingly out of line. And you need to either get back in line or you get a different job. Because, no, this is unacceptable. But if, even from the top down, the culture is not, you show them respect, well. Anyway, so it's Briggs and Johnson that are going to go after the lawyer. Ingrid and another cop, Detective Wilkins, they're going to go out after Galvin. Solari is just going to go to the bank on his own. We then cut to Michael and Lillian. You're an idiot, Michael Copper. Damn, you made me whiff that one because he's just playing like, virtual golf. And I am an idiot for thinking you had this handled. If you played chess instead of whacking a little ball, you know how badly you've muffed this. And it's like, Michael always was presented far more as an intellectual equal to her earlier. Now he's an idiot. Well, earlier, not, because I don't know when Alphacore came out relative to the others. It might be that his personality changed after this. I don't know. And that's a problem, because the comprehensive... This makes no sense. It's more confusing this way. Anyhow. Because it's also... There's a lack of continuity as well. I have not read many manga, but one thing that I have to give manga... And it is one of those funny things, because people do compare American comics to manga, and with the Rippaverse, some people do here, it's like, hey, this is trying at least to revitalize American comics. At least with manga, though, it is like a single story consistently being told. So the coherence is there. This, it's like, we get this story, then this story, then this story, then this story. And it's all different authors, which can still keep that coherent. But it's like, there are inconsistencies here. Solari's very inconsistent with others. Michael's inconsistent with the Michaels and others. And it's kind of annoying. And I think this might also be part of the whole, I'm a novel reader. I read novels. I also write them. But it's like, so you try to have a consistent character throughout, from cover to cover. And if there's more than one book in the series, you try to keep them through that. Try to keep them consistent through that. But I'm going through this, I'm not feeling it. And it's quite annoying. Anyway, we then learn that Michael has called in another guy to help deal with things, specifically to go to the bank and destroy stuff, but Lillian is going to take over instead to do something more subtle. And she calls in somebody who, I don't remember if we get his name now or just later, Benny, who's painting another except that when he just basically walks in, you are under his spell. He can just sway you to do whatever, and people will just forget. So it is like, he needs to get something out of a safety deposit box. I'll need your authorization. I'll need to see authorization for that, sir, and 2 forms of, I don't think you need all that, do you? Of course not, sir. This way, sir. So he's able to take out the money and put in an envelope and then leave with no one really caring. So basically, Jedi mind trick. Which, going back to the whole scale as far as accepts go, it's like, this would be somebody that's like, oh no, I can absolutely understand you don't want this person involved with police work because does that fall under coercion then if he's able to manipulate? And it's also, can he manipulate somebody to lie? Meaning that any evidence collected via him would be compromised. So it's like, that I can understand. That's case-by-case basis kind of thing. But still, just doing generically, no accepts is silly to me. Anyway, as he's leaving, we can see the guy that Michael had hired is coming in, and Solari is also already at the bank. But we then cut to Solari and Ingrid and Wilkins. They're going through the known associates of Galvin, trying to find him. Oh, wait, yeah. It was earlier. A comment Ingrid made that she's not going to be Solari's passenger, which is funny because literally, I think every story, except for Chasing Ghosts maybe, and Welcome to Flores Park, when those two are depicted together, Solari does carry her. So it's like, this is the story. It's like, nah, I'm not going to let that happen. It's like, except it happens all the time. But Wilkins actually suggests you should just get the department to assign you a car since you can't fly and don't need to be driven around then. A real bitchin' ride. You could call it the... Then she responds, I don't have a superhero name. I am not a comic book character, bucko. Sorry, I'm not a freak. I'm a cop. Treat me like one. Sorry. It's like, okay, that's fine. I was like, her response is okay. I'm fine with that, but it's kind of funny that she does eventually get such a ride. That's in Chasing Ghosts. But then, it's like they're at the door, knocking, no answer. We have a warrant. Those are some serious locks. Wilkins is clearly an accept because he's just holding his finger up like that, and we're seeing electrical charges, it seems like. Very much like Galvin's, and even his face not necessarily all that dissimilar, which made me think I don't necessarily have a reason not to trust Wilkins, but is there a relation here? Later on we're told a little bit more, and not quite. That's not what's going on here, but yes, he is an accept. But yeah, he opens the door. Police, while entering, someone's burning breakfast. I'm feeling that feeling. You're an accept. Nah, really, Ingrid? I'm feeling that feeling, an accept. I mean, it's like... Uses powers to open door here. Panel here with them walking in. They are inside. He says something. Now it's I'm feeling that feeling. You're an accept. Seriously, it takes you that long. What kind of cop are you? It's happening right in front of you and you can't figure it out. You have to say it a moment later. Like beats later. So Cecil's there. Cecil. Which one is Cecil? Cecil was survivor. That's right. Galvin is there. Starts fighting. And at the same time, the guy that Michael had hired for getting the stuff out of the bank, or at least destroying it, he reveals himself, and he's Billy Bob Quinn, by the way, and he can basically turn himself into a flaming lava monster. But Solari's right there and is able to start fighting. So yeah, Ingrid is able to fight Galvin seemingly well. It's still, I don't really know what her ability is. And I know I've said this before, but it's partly the whole... All that I'm seeing from her ability is something that's potentially pure technology. What is her actual ability? I don't know. You're just showing me, like, electro whips. But they come out of her suit. So it could just be the suit. What is her actual thing? I don't know. At least Solari, he's bulletproof, he punches really hard, and he flies. Braxwell hits really hard and flies. I don't know if he's bulletproof or not, but it's like, okay, I got what they're doing. I don't know what she's doing. But yeah, so they're fighting. Galvin is actually... Wilkins is able to start firing at him, which Galvin is able to stop the bullets, but it's enough of a distraction that Ingrid is able to overpower him and actually throws him out a window, which then just means he can be arrested. Solari is not having as easy a time because even though he's able to meet Billy Bob as far as strength is concerned, but the fire breath is a bit much, and also the fact that Solari is a little overconfident here. I'm giving you one more chance to cooperate, but it's while the fire breath is in his face, so he's certainly suffering some pain. And it's like he's potentially having the breath burned out of him. So he collapses from that. Okay, fine. Billy Bob goes into the vault to get the thing. Is even like saying 74, 40, 45, 47, 49. That's the one. So they heard that, so they were able to figure out which safe deposit box. But the bank manager, he has a brilliant idea. He locks the vault. And on the one hand, it makes perfect sense because vaults, they are intended to seal, and the door seals hermetically so that fire can't get in. That's very intentional. However, it's like he's locked inside with all the money and a limited supply of oxygen. Not actually. Vaults like that are designed with vents, specifically so if somebody were accidentally locked in, especially because time locks are a thing, meaning it might not be able to be opened for 12 hours or even 24 hours, or longer if it's a weekend. They have vents there specifically, so if somebody is locked in there, they will be okay. They will still be able to breathe fine. However, I mean, it's just one of those, it's not as simple as that, but that doesn't mean that this wouldn't still work. Because as Billy Bob goes all fire mode, it is reasonable that he would still be consuming more oxygen than the vent would allow to pull in. So he still can be suffocated this way. But it's not as simple as, yeah, it's just now sealed room, so there's no more oxygen. It's like, no, there is a vent. Okay, there is a vent, there will be a vent. So yeah, that disables him. Then we cut back to Ingrid and Wilkins, who, yeah, I owe you an apology, Wilkins. What for? I got on my high horse earlier. I thought you were treating me like a freak. Turns out you're a freak too. It's just a party trick, really. I can manipulate anything metallic. I win bar bets opening pickle jars without touching them. I barely rate a 2 on the Schuster scale. Still makes you an accept. You move up the scale with some work. It's like a muscle. You think? That's basically where that ends. For now, anyway. But he's saying this in public. He's winning bar bets. Which, by definition, are public. He's not secret. Which is a problem, because he's a regular detective on the police force, but there's this Fawcett Act thing. It's like consequences from Fawcett Act saying, hey, they can't be on the police force, at least not in a regular role, just answering regular calls. But then he is doing this. Oh, but he's doing it in secret. You know, he has his powers in secret, except he talks about them publicly and uses them publicly, and I need water. Just... consequence of talking a lot. I need water. And it's this to me is at best poor writing. Because it's like you said something, but you're not following your own rules. It's supposed to be rules for how these things work. Then it's like, okay, for accepts on the police force, okay, follow the rules. Wilkins cannot be in the position he is in unless it is a, hey, I'm only a 2 on the Schuster scale. It means I'm below the level. No one cares. Okay, so it's like, that would work. It's like, no exceptions. Okay, well, it's public that he does this. No, it's not. He's winning bar bets. They know at the bars he goes to. And he's a cop. I'm sorry. There's such thing as a cop bar. Is he intentionally going to non-cop bars? Which is possible, but why would he necessarily be doing that? And he'd still be recognized. People would still know, hey, he's a detective. It would have to be an open secret, if not just full-on public knowledge. Just not talked about much. Because Wilkins doesn't necessarily seem like somebody that would inspire much conversation. But still is just... this isn't... he's not keeping it a secret. So, how does this fit in with the Fawcett Act? And that is poor writing. It could, or bad writing. It's one of the two. Because either you're just ignoring something that you set up that is important to the story. So is Wilkins. Wilkins is also important to the story. We just haven't seen it fully yet. That comes about later. It's like, it's like we have these two important things that are in conflict. That's either poor writing that you didn't think out the consequences of the faucet of these two important things and see that they are in conflict, or it's bad writing that you just don't care. In which case, then, you shouldn't be doing it. It's like you should not be writing that. Somebody, or either Dixon should have caught it, or an editor should have caught it and been like, hey, this doesn't make sense. You need to clarify this. Okay, you need to make this all coherent, because it's not. Or rather consistent. In the more mathematical sense of it. That an inconsistent value is something where it's like, yeah, that value cannot fit in there. It means that there is no solution to the problem. At least when you got linear algebra, but anyhow. Getting back to this, they look at the video footage, figure out that, yeah, he said deposit box 49. So they go to it, and it's like, 49, don't you need a warrant? We had a saying in the army, sometimes it's better to apologize and ask permission. Again, he was a 2-star general. He wouldn't need to be apologizing, technically. He'd be the one you'd be apologizing to. But there's also an element that... I actually think... No. They would need a warrant. Even if it is a... we need this now kind of thing, because that's a second, somebody who's after this specific thing. And like the bank was just robbed early, which actually the fact this is the same day and the bank is already open, that's actually nonsense. No, legitimately that is. It should be closed down as part of the investigation, which by the way would also, well, true at this point, Texas might be its own country in these stories, but it's like there would be, like the FBI investigates that stuff. Anyhow, but no, he would need a warrant, and the bank manager wouldn't be, don't you need a warrant, asking the question. He'd be, yeah, no, I need the warrant. I need the paperwork saying I had to give this to you. And it might be I'm good with you taking the stuff, but I need that paperwork for liability purposes. I will lose my job if you just take it. And it's just an envelope. We next cut to Briggs and Johnson going to talk to the lawyer who was giving an interview and is basically just anti-accept asshole. First he goes to the bathroom, but the Benny guy, the accept who can just sway people, manages to sway him out of a window, so he's dead. Wrapping up that loose end. We then cut to Eagle's Nest. Solari and Ingrid are there. Solari is going around with sunglasses on because his eyebrows got burned. And it's like, again, this is I get that, but that's somebody younger than the Solari of Great War Separation, who I would see that man being like, I don't care. It's like, yeah, hey, what happened to your eyebrows? I mean, it'd probably be more of a no one would even ask the damn question, because like, okay, I guess he's missing his eyebrows. There must be a reason for that. Good enough. Moving on. It's like, wouldn't even have to ask the question, because you wouldn't ask that of Solari, or it would be, what's the story? Be like, fire monster. Got it. Okay. I mean, that's Solari of the other stories. Because he has commanding presence, because he has discipline, is so disciplined a character, you expect whatever he does, there's a reason to it. He's not just doing things, he's choosing to do these things. So if you ask him, he will tell you what the reason is. Assuming he chooses to tell you. So it's like, he wouldn't care then about the eyebrows. It wouldn't matter, because it's like, no, I got done what needed to be done. And it would be like, all right, well, I don't need to ask then, or what's the story there? Not what happened, just what's the story? You're not pointing at the eyebrows, just, I know there's something that went on here. What was it? This is, and it's like, fire monster. Got it. That's it. You don't need more than that because he handled it. Anyway, so, while they're on Eagle's Nest looking at the flash drive, Johnson and Briggs are looking at security footage and realize that, the Benny guy was at the bank, ahead of the fire monster, ahead of Billy Bob. And then he was also at the TV studio, going into the restroom. Leaving the men's restroom right before the window. But no one has memory of ever seeing him, so video footage is important here. But it is okay, we gotta talk to this guy, because clearly he's involved. Call then comes in that they need an except that, well, call comes in for Alphacore, Braxwell goes, Solari is still there. We then cut to Michael and Lillian and get the explanation that, yeah, she had things swapped, and so what she left there was a trap. You know, it's a, just trying to see where it actually says it. Yeah, the Flores Park police will no longer be in a position to trouble us should they go for the bait, the USB cable, USB drive. Just cutting to Braxwell, he's helping with trying to catch Benny, but he is told first that, hey, you need to prepare because they are concerned about that, and it seems like he's just, oh no, I see. So he actually brings duct tape. I thought that it might be that it shows, like, musical notes coming from his earpiece. Well, the earpiece of his helmet, which I figured he's just listening to music, so he can't hear Benny's voice and be swayed. But it is also, I'm noticing now, he also, like, just duct taped his mouth. It's like, that'll work, but if you don't also secure his hands, he can just take off the duct tape. But then, at least one dude who's also an except comes and starts fighting Braxwell. In that case, say, you came to the wrong neighborhood. Oh, wait. What you doing to Benny? You came to the wrong neighborhood, deputy. We're now back to Eagle's Nest, where Sandy seems to be, like, the technical sergeant kind of person, runs the computer, all that. And Solari is just seeing that and it's like, let's plug it in. We don't know what's on that. It's almost certainly encrypted. It might be loaded with malware that we really don't want here. He who dares wins. How bad could it be? This is not a two-star general talking. This is an idiot talking. You and we swear by your antivirus programs. What's the worst that could happen? We have to change a few passcodes. I mean, you are such a techno clown, Sandy then says it. It's like, yeah, he's an idiot. This Solari is an idiot. Just blundering into these things. And it's just, but it's also just stupid. And this is another contrivance. And it is a contrivance. Where it's like, the single flash drive plugged into one computer on Eagle's Nest is enough for the virus that did not know it was going to be connecting to Eagle's Nest to take it over. It's like, what? I can understand. Okay, if they plug this in at the police department is most likely using Windows on all their machines. So whatever they connect into, we just need to run a Windows virus, and hey, we can do stuff now. Well, but this is Eagle's Nest. It's not unreasonable they're running a completely different operating system because it's kind of a very different piece of equipment than what you'd find in a police department. So you'd need specialized viruses to do anything to it. It also shouldn't have a single computer that connects to every damn thing on it, such that they just take over the entire thing and are able to just fly it. Because Lillian now has hijacked it and it's like, oh, well, we're just going to fly it into the police headquarters to destroy basically everything. It's like, why would you have your computers so networked to allow that? What? True, not in the Navy. But I would assume if you plugged a USB drive with malware into a computer on an aircraft carrier, that virus cannot possibly get to the computers that manage the like nuclear reactor to cause it to start overheating. Okay, to disable safeties on that. I imagine it can't go and start messing with the GPS and such on the con, because those are all separated out, specifically to prevent one from compromising another. Even though it's on a frickin' Navy ship. It's a single Navy ship. I would still think they compartmentalize all that. Because you don't want to even the potential for issues. Plus, it might also be the systems we got in the con and the systems we got at the nuclear reactor are completely different systems. We'd have to write a program for them. We'd have to set up APIs for them to even to communicate properly for control purposes. Monitoring would be different. But it's like, I can see just being these are different systems. So obviously they're not going to communicate. One might run one version of Linux, the other might run a different version of Linux. I'm like, that kind of stuff. That's very reasonable. Why are we thinking that, oh no, one computer will run all of Eagle's Nest such that a virus on a virus that wasn't prepared specifically for this hardware is able to take it over. Hardware and software is able to take it over and take over the whole damn thing. Which, by the way, it also has multiple, naval level guns on it. Why? I mean, why? What do they think Eagle's Nest is going to be attacking that needs these guns? And why does Lillian not fire those? So anyway, it's set on a collision course. Braxwell has dealt with his situation. So Solari, he's going. Well, Braxwell's going to rush there to help. Solari flies out to do the. It's like, I'm big, I'm strong, and I can fly. I'm going to fly out and just try to push against the thing to stop it. I don't really know why you'd expect that to work. I mean, at least, slow down. Okay, maybe. But I also find it a little funny because it looks like he's doing more damage to the ship than Zaylin did when trying to achieve an even greater feat back in, Zaylin. Braxwell's arrival, though, is helpful because he's able to help with... Because it does, crash into other things and stuff is falling and potentially endangering others, so it's like Brax collateral, so Braxwell's able to go in and help rescue people. And it looks like, Solari's doing the same. So it's heading towards Police Square 1. And it's like everyone's got to evacuate. And it is also smashing into a whole bunch of other buildings. But Wilkins, he was there. And Lillian is like, well, I guess I've won. I'm tilting the power axis in Flores Park over to us. It's like, who the hell are you? No, I'm serious. It's like, we've tilted the power axis over to us. Who are you? How's it tilted towards you? You're just two people that we don't really know what you're doing. I mean, if it were Darren, it's like, okay, he's actually tried to be established as a crime lord in Flores Park. I got that. That makes sense. I can understand that. To say that, the power axis is still towards him. But it's like, all Michael and Lillian got is they're malevolent and they're apparently rich. That's it. They don't have any known organization at this point. They have their companies, but it's like, I mean, they're not even like Lex Luthor or something like that. Where it's like, okay, we know you're a bad guy. Everybody knows who you are, and that you're not really that good a guy, but you're hiding it. It's like, no, we don't even know who the hell you are. Anyway, Wilkins sees this coming. He just walks out, and he can't let it happen, and so he just uses his power to stop it, short of crashing into the building, which is very impressive. Technically, there's also the problem that, it's already crashed into the ground, which that actually could be what he did, was not so much stop it, but just drag it down into the ground. Because as powerful as Eagle's Nest engines might be, that's going to damage them, and moving Earth is not necessarily easy. So that might be what he did, but it is enough that it actually kills him. It is enough of an effort that it does kill him. And one thing that is also really neat, in my opinion, is that we do have Solari, because he's there, because he was trying to stop it as well. Or at least he got ahead of it to potentially stop it, but it does stop, and it just stopped. No, he stopped it. So it's like Solari does recognize just seeing Wilkins' body there. And it's just like, he did this. He achieved this. So he knows that this guy's an accept. But then it's like, is that a cop? Bet your ass. from Braxwell, so actually he does talk. Then Solari name tag says Wilkins, not a mark on him. Although technically he should be bleeding from his nose, some blood because he was bleeding from his nose. But then Ingrid is finally next to them. Wilkins, I think he might be the reason we didn't strike the barn, Solari says. He was. He was an except. He kept it hidden. Except he didn't. He used it at bars to win bets. It's like, and he openly talked about it with you while there were police around. They weren't necessarily listening to him, but he wasn't trying to hide it. Just, yeah, he didn't think he was up to our level. Turns out he was the best of us. It's like, look, I like the Wilkins character. I do. I like how this goes here, but it's wasted. It doesn't matter. None of this matters. It's like, it's unreasonable that Eagle's Nest had this happen to it, that the hijacking is just stupid. It's a contrivance. And then Wilkins stopping is like, okay, yeah, sure, I guess, kinda. It works, but to what end? It's like, okay, he stopped it, but so what? The thing itself was unreasonable to happen in the first place, so I don't care, and I should care. Because I like the character, and it's like, hey, it's a good sacrifice, but to what end? Yes, he saved stuff, but it's like you could have come up with another solution to save it. What meaning is there to his death here? Because there isn't. It isn't like anyone in Alphacore was losing their way. It's not like Solari was actually grandstanding, but here's a guy who he kept it secret so that he could keep doing his work. That's not who Wilkins was. That's not how he was described. He just didn't think he was that powerful. So it's like, yeah, whatever. And I just don't talk about it, except he does. But it's like, it doesn't matter. I'm just a cop. I'm just a cop. It's not something where it's like, I chose to sacrifice being greater because I needed to just be the normal guy doing this. Because we need the normal guys doing this. There's nothing like that. There's nothing. His sacrifice putting somebody else on a path to redemption. There's no story meaning to it at all. So it's unnecessary for Eagle's Nest to have crashed. It's unnecessary for him to have died. And it does annoy me. It really does annoy me. I mean, maybe, in theory, it pisses Ingrid off. That's like, yeah, because he was the best of us. How? Well, he sacrificed himself, and none of you would? Well, I mean, yeah, of course, then he wasn't the best of you. He was equal to you. He just actually sacrificed himself. You three haven't gotten the opportunity to yet. And it's like, don't get me wrong, I get it. Because the choice was before him, and he made the choice, and he did it. That's very important. It's just, it's like I was saying with the whole redemption thing. No one's set up for redemption. This doesn't have any emotional weight in the story. So I don't care. And that's a problem. That's a very significant problem. But if it were, part of it is also difficult because of the whole, with Solari in particular, the other stories where we see a clearly different Solari, clearly different personality, those are all different stories, potentially all written well after this, and where it was just decided we're going to change his character. Fine. Whatever. You could, if you had planned for that though, it could be Wilkins' death is what led him to change. The problem is that how he was set up here, he didn't need to change. Okay? Like, you could have continued with this character and just slowly let him develop into a better person. We don't need Wilkins' death, especially since he didn't know Wilkins. There was no connection there for him. But it's also, because of Great War Separation, the character there, this is the anomaly. It's not like he was like this back then. No, this is the anomaly. Alphacore is the anomaly. So it's like, it falls apart. So yeah, there is, it's thready. It's there because it wanted to be, the author wanted to write it in there, but it's not justified by the story. So yeah, yeah. Alright, Michael and Lillian are looking to leave on vacation. Week in Cabo will ease the pain. Yeah, I hate losing Michael. A week in Cabo will ease the pain, Lillian. But Alphacore shows up to basically introduce themselves and be like, we know who you are, and we know you were connected to all this. Can't charge you with anything yet, but you are on our radar. And then, they're just gonna leave. But Ingrid isn't in the mood for that, and, basically just seriously damages the plane, cutting off one of the, I don't remember what it's actually called, but how it has, the tail, and there's another wing coming off the tail, cuts that off, cuts off an engine, because it's a 2 jet engines, both at the rear, cuts one of those off, and also technically cuts through the the luggage Michael was carrying. And it just looks like your vacay has been delayed. Engine trouble. Just ends with Solari and her talking. You're going to have to explain this to Chief Holcomb. I'll finesse something, and those two will just whistle up another jet within the hour. Don't spoil the moment, Bri. And it's like, okay. Yeah, I'm gonna finesse something with the chief, who seems like an asshole. So it's like, even that. It's not like Solari had been brought in multiple times, and he keeps getting yelled at. So now it's like, okay, it's your turn. It's like, I'll finesse something. It's like, that would have been better, but we don't really have a setup to make it meaningful beyond just, as I said, that Holcomb's an asshole. So what? It's like, why should she care? Because there's also that element of, why should any of them care? It's like, we don't have, almost like we don't have to work for you. Yeah, it's a job, but we're so powerful. We only obey the rules because we choose to. You need to respect that, because if we choose to stop obeying the rules, you can't stop us. It's like, there's no, that dynamic isn't there, but it's like, there's no real setup for her finessing something, so that might be difficult for her, or might not be. It's like, it's very meaningless. It's so thready. It's got so many contrivances. It's just, sorry, I'm just thinking. I put it down as a 1. Weak, well, positively flavored, fail to recommend. I'm just thinking, do I want to lower that? Okay, I need to. I need to think, because there is actually, I'm tempted to give this actually 2 scores, but I need to think on this one first. The Alphacore on its own. Okay, yeah. Alphacore on its own, positively flavored, fail to recommend. Because there are ways, because as I've explained previously, that's for where I did not enjoy this, I don't think it's good, I would describe it as poor or weak, but there are ways it can be better. So, for example, making Wilkins more important, more significant, so his death carries greater weight. Making Michael seem not so much an idiot would help, although that breaks a bunch of the story, so you'd have to do a lot of rewriting for that. Solari, you can keep it how he is, but you need to better clarify his dynamic with others, because it's like, permission to fly as he leaves, it's like, he's just being sarcastic. That's not, there's not that much there, really, because it's like, he's already dealt with being the whole freak calls thing. So he's already dealing with this kind of nonsense. So it's not like it would not make any sense for him to be angry. This is just how his job is. It sucks. So, yeah, like, that is not the first time he's had that conversation, is basically my point there. So there isn't that much meaning to it. But you could do things to give him more meaning. Have him have to see Holcomb more often. Something like that. Where they're butting heads more. So then the whole at the end, as I was just with the I'll finesse something from Ingrid, it's like, that would then have more meaning. When now she has to go to Holcomb, not Solari. That could do something. That would be better. I feel like there's another point, but it's escaped my mind. But like there are ways that you can, with this story, improve things. Have Wilkins be around more. Maybe have a moment so that his sacrifice means something. There are things. So I definitely do believe there are things you could do to make this better, to pop this up and to recommend it. So yes, on its own, I'm fine with category number 1, positively flavored, fail to recommend. However, said 2 rankings. Well, two not rankings. Two categories for it. The other, yeah. Let me actually write this in. And -2 weak recommend against. While the above 1 is for Alphacore on its own, the this -2, and I will clarify what a weak recommend against means more so, is for it within the context of the omnibus and this position in it. Solari is so clearly different from every other story I have read him in. And just how the timeline, such as Eagle's Nest existing and crashing, and just how the timeline, such as being displayed in other stories, despite it being inconsistent or confusing, revealing the crash in Chasing Ghosts, and just having the flying base in Horsemen. Welcome to Flora's Park, as the base only got its name, which should happen early in its use. And just having the flying base in Horseman Welcome to Flora's Park, his base only got its name here, which is I'm not writing this out very well. Revealing the crash in Chasing Ghosts, and having the flying base in Horseman Welcome to Flora's Park. As a base only got its name here, which should happen early in its use, which makes the placement in the timeline for that story confusing, as it can neither be before nor after this. Yeah. Because I'm having to write out the full note because I may forget this when I get to writing it. But basically the idea is that it's a -2 within the larger context. So this gets a weak recommend against because it is so inconsistent with the other stories and suffers for what was what I read earlier, that this is a waste of time. Because that is, it's not the best way to put it, because it's not the only definition to recommend against. But a shorthand way to think of shorthand way to think of when I recommend something is I enjoyed it. Shorthand, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other things there. Although no, if I recommend something, I enjoyed it. But there might be other things going on there as well. Recommend against shorthand way, and this doesn't necessarily encompass everything. It isn't a all-encompassing definition. Is it feeling a waste of time? And a weak recommend against, that can be I think it would be a waste of time for you to read it. Not necessarily for me. Do I think it was a waste of my time to have read this? Not really. I definitely don't like it. It should have been earlier in the omnibus. I think if it were earlier in the omnibus, I would think better of it. So I should actually add that as well. If this were earlier in the omnibus, I do believe I would think better of it. Yeah, so I don't regret it, but I don't think it's worth anyone else reading. Not in this context of the omnibus. If it were early in the omnibus, then I probably wouldn't say it's a recommend against. But I think it would be a waste of your time. A straight recommend against is I think it was a waste of my time. A strong recommend against would be I think it was a waste of the author's time. No, I don't feel that way for this one. I definitely don't feel that way. There are some things where it's like, I either do feel that way or I'm tempted to feel that way. But that's not this. In fact, I don't think any of it would fall in that. In fact, I think this is the only one that is a recommend against for any of the stories in the omnibus. Which in a way is good, because I don't want there to be any. I don't want any story to be something I'd recommend against. But it is, in the context of the omnibus, no, it is that bad. I do think, for where it is in the stories of this, it's bad. If it were earlier, though, then we see that, they decided to change Solari's character. Fine, I didn't like the original character. Or okay, well, I guess you're going to just a new version of the character. Okay, fine, and then can see that. Instead, it's like, confident, competent, disciplined, intelligent Solari in Great Wars of Separation 1 and 2, I'm just looking at the list of stuff here. In ISOM 1, he may have also been in one. Well, he was at least present in ISOM 1. In Yaira 1 through 3. In. Don't recall him being in Chasing Ghosts. I think it was only Ingrid. He may have been present, though. But in Horseman, Welcome to Flores Park, in Horseman number 1. And then here, we get this guy who I could believe he didn't even make it above lieutenant. I mean, it's just... It's because of having to read it so late, it seems like he developed into this idiot, even though this idiot is technically the first version of Solari written, but he's also the post Great War Separation Solari. Hey, I'm also just going back to look at ISOM 1. Okay. Just trying to... So, yeah, even what is his first line? Because he's having to deal with Yaira. I instructed you to never return. So even that is carrying so much weight, so much strength there. And it's just, he is standing there and just stating it. Arms across. That is somebody who has a commanding presence. At least at this moment, he's choosing to have that. He's also carrying Ingrid, by the way. And it's like, but then we get to Alphacore. That's not this character. That guy's an idiot. It's like, I instructed you never to... Instructed? I was like, I told you this. I instructed you. I educated you. I enlightened you to never return. It's like, there's power behind that. There's not. Solari doesn't have that in it's like, Solari, permission to fly. No. No. Just trying to see. Okay, I think it is in the Ira one that I'm thinking. Come on. Where there's yeah, because we actually do see him then fighting Yaira and is actually competent here as well. Frustrated for some of it, but I think this is here. It's in here where we have the whole talking about Ingrid and her investigative skills. But I'm saying he's competent in everything else. I don't feel that way in Alphacore, and that's a problem. That is such a problem. Yeah, and I get the whole. If somebody wants to say, yeah, well, he changed after they wrote Alphacore. Fine, except, well, let me try to look at. I got no idea if I'm going to be able to find this. Rippaverse order of release. Oh, hang on. Here are the pieces being paid. Production being okay. So I'm just. They're doing another run of the Omnibus. You have until June 6th to place an order. And does say production begins once the funding goal is reached. So that's either 100 books are sold or they make $20,000 with the cell, which you can expect delivery. Estimated fulfillment begins July 14th. There's so many issues that I have with it. But I just want the order of release. You can try removing the omnibus. Is it really not like just a wiki of this? Okay, no, that's well, hang on. Okay. So I found something here that it's for the omnibus, which is a little annoying, but it does actually it gives the order for the stories in the omnibus, but does also give the release date, the release years at least, and months. So like Norfolka, November 2025, Zaylan, May 2025. But let's just see. So ISOM 1, 2, and 3 were 2022, 2023, 2025. Yaira, June 2024, March 2025, August 2025. Okay. Where is Alphacore? Alphacore, December 2023. Okay. So that means that's definitely after. That's after ISOM 1 and 2. It's before Yaira, though. But still, even, as I said, in ISOM 1, it's like I instructed you never to return. It's like, that's still a very different character than we get in Alphacore. So, it still doesn't actually make sense. Okay, but it does also put Alphacore then prior. That was December 2023. Welcome to Flores Park was November 2024, so almost a year later. So potentially then that means that when we see Solari flying him out, that's a new Eagle's Nest. No idea though, because that's not explained, and it's not stated there, and some of this might just be my frustration from how, and I was saying earlier about, sorry, I'm just looking at another thing that's not quite it. Okay. Gonna do, there it is. Okay. Sending this thing that has the, has those release years over to the laptop, because that's where I do most of this, most of the writing and the recording is on my laptop. And my brain just turned off a little bit about what the point was I was trying to make. Yeah, it's still, the timeline doesn't make sense for how the character is. It seemed like he just suddenly changed for this. And that's a problem. Crap, what was it? I'm just, that annoys me so much because it's like I really want to know. Really, it was like, it was a good point. And I'm just, anyway, I'm approaching 2 hours, so I really should just stop this video. But it's, I on its own, I wouldn't recommend it. You know, fail to recommend. It has potential, but fail to recommend. Oh wait. That's right. That's what it was. It also feels like this is suffering from exceedingly nonlinear writing, where you're just jumping around in the timeline as far as when any of these stories are set. And so it's like, you know, Horseman, Welcome to Flores Park, he's being flown out of Eagle's Nest. Maybe it's Eagle's Nest 2. Okay, they built a second? When did that happen? We don't know. Is that like Alphacore 2? And Alphacore 2 is just going to be set prior to Horseman. Is there a way for anyone to know this information? It seems the answer is no. Which is quite a problem, especially when you've got an omnibus that, in theory, it says comprehensive timeline. It doesn't make any sense, but it's kind of like I said earlier. Do they have a job for QA? Because holy shit, they need it. I mean, even just somebody that would be... I'm serious. I'm dead serious. I think I would just take every title, find a board, and just put them up there and be like, here's the timeline, and just put them in an order and be like, this is the order that it seems they go in. Here are also all the issues, and here's someone say, I can't put them anywhere. Because, like, Welcome to Flores Park, it both has to be after the start of Alphacore, because you don't name the thing long after it started being used, okay? It's like, you name that, hell, you name that before it takes off. You name that before you finish building it, okay? So, yeah, it's like, that has to be, because it gets its name in Alphacore, that has to be like, it is now there and working. And if somebody's like, oh, well, no, they've been used for, then why is it named so late? Okay, because that's a very reasonable question. I mean, it's like, I think, using the Navy as an example again, I think we've got ships that we know their names before we start building them. It's like, I mean, the Trump-class battleship. I'm saying, yeah, there's designs for that, but I think everyone acknowledges that, yeah, that's not going to be the final design. That's just, you know, kind of the wish list design. And what'll end up actually being built will be different from that. But do we already know the name of the name of the ship? Yes, we already know the name of the ship. Hasn't been built yet. No construction. At least I don't think any construction has started on that. It's just pre-construction. It's the pre-production. It's the planning of it. We already have the name for it. But you're telling me this thing didn't have a name, but it's already in the air, and it has been in the air for a while. It's stupid. That is so stupid. So no, it would seem then that Horseman, Welcome to Flores Park has to be after the start of Alphacore, but before the end of Alphacore. Because we only know of the one Eagle's Nest. This seems to be when they started using it, and then it crashed shortly thereafter. So that means all of it has to happen right then. But then we also have the problem, it's like that, or you either go with, well, no, it's been in use for a while without a name, that's stupid, or, oh, another one got built. Okay, when did that happen? Where did that happen? Where are we showing that to the reader that it happened? Oh, well, that'll be in this book. Is the book out yet? No. Then why are we putting out a book happening after that, and we're showing an event in there that occurs off page currently? It makes no, and it's not explained. It's just, yeah, we're seeing that. It's just like, wait, what? It's I do have, because just bringing back to my own writing as well. Most of the stuff that I have in mind to write, if there's multiple books if there's multiple stories to it, I will be writing them linearly, like A to B to C to D. But I do also have one set of stories where actually it is going to be jumping around, in part because I didn't initially plan it. It's just going to be this common setting for all these different stories. I'm also intentionally, in some ways, not allowing interaction between them because it's not necessary. It's like, that's fine. You don't necessarily need it, but there will be some stories that are set before others. And I am being conscious of that. It was like, okay, what did I already write? And how can I need to make sure that it all works together, that it's consistent, it is coherent. Because if it's not, that means I screwed up. That is my failure. And I'm just applying that standard here, and there's a lot of failure. And that's pissing me off. Because it should be better. It should be better than that. Because why should I, for a standard like that, why should I be like, oh, well, yes, I'm keeping that standard that I consider completely reasonable, but I'm not going to expect others to. Okay, I have to be critical of them for this. Okay, I really do. Even if you feel, oh, it's not that important. Mistakes happen. It's like, that's fine if you want to say that. I still have to be like, no, you have, I cannot neglect, I cannot drop that standard, because it's not just my standard, it's, as I said, I consider a reasonable standard. So it is, like the current story I'm working on would technically be set hundreds of years prior. And say, okay, well, what consequences might there be for what I'm writing here? I mean, fortunately, that's actually far enough apart. It's not a big deal. But another story that I want to write is actually, no, that would be set maybe 100 years prior. And so there are things that are impacted in the stories I've already written by this earlier story that I want to write at some point. In the Catherineverse, I mentioned I want to do a war story. That would be set like 100 years, maybe a little bit more, ahead of the books I've already written. I need to be able to explain certain things. And it will explain some stuff that is already in those stories. But it will also set other things. It will also establish certain other things that I haven't explained. And I need to make sure that it's all coherent. And if there are going to be things where it's like, technically I'll have to retcon, it's like, okay, hopefully I'll be able to keep those to a minimum, though. And because I will be actively trying to avoid that. Because if it's not, then I'm not as good a writer as I want to be. And I want to be a good writer. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I never will be. Doesn't matter. That's what I want to be. So, yeah, and it's like one example I can give, because when I wrote a letter from Catherine, sorry, I do describe a war that already happened, but the main character, Roman, he's a veteran of it. But I also do describe some of what the military, that's a space-based science fiction story, by the way. I do explain some aspects of how the military exists and what its primary purpose is and all that. The war story will actually just explain the military's origin. Well, the military that is seen in A Letter from Catherine, its origin will get explained in that. So I need to think through, okay, how does that work? How do I have the seeds laid there properly for it to fit? And the war story idea came second. So I need to have it fit in. There's also things about how the government system works there that technically already set some stuff up in there. It's like, okay, I need to make sure it makes sense, that it follows from this, what will ultimately be an earlier event with this war story. So it's like, I have to think about all that. Even though it's I had the idea later, I still have to think about all that. And I'm applying that same expectation, that same standard here. And it's not meeting it, and it's really annoying me. Alright. Bloodwooth is next. Bloodwooth number 1, and then Dirty Deeds, and then I get to have the fun of writing all this up. That's going to take a while. It's going to take a while. But, it'll be interesting. Plus, I'll probably bitch a lot more about this timeline stuff, because I'll be going through and knowing that, hey, this doesn't get explained. See you next time.